The Shattered Pieces of Her Heart. Chapter 1. The Silent Storm. Nadia sat on the worn-out bench of the city park, her fingers gripping the edges of her coat as the wind whispered through the empty streets. The air was cold, biting at her skin, but she didn't care. The chill outside was nothing compared to the ice lodged deep in her heart. She had always been different. Not in the way that made people admire her, but in a way that made them pity her. Life had dealt her a cruel hand, and despite her efforts, she had never been able to shuffle the deck in her favor. Her childhood was a blur of shouting voices, slammed doors, and the lingering scent of cigarette smoke. Her father was a ghost who appeared only when he wanted something, and her mother was a shadow, present but absent all at once. Nadia learned early that love was conditional, doled out in small portions and snatched away the moment she dared to ask for more. Chapter 2. The Weight of the Past. The bruises she carried weren't just on her skin but carved into her soul. Each rejection, each broken promise, each night spent crying into a pillow too thin to muffle her sobs, it all added up. The past clung to her like an anchor, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't break free. She had spent years convincing herself that she didn't need anyone. People only hurt. Love only broke. Promises were made to be shattered. Yet, deep down, she longed for someone to prove her wrong. She wanted to believe that happiness wasn't just something that happened to other people. Then came Aaron. Chapter 3. The Unlikely Savior. Aaron had eyes that held the warmth of summer, even in the dead of winter. He was the type of person who saw beauty in broken things, a collector of shattered souls. He found Nadia in her darkest moments and, instead of walking away, he reached for her hand. She hated him for it at first, hated the way he made her feel. Vulnerability was dangerous, and he made her want to let her guard down. But Aaron had patience, the kind that didn't waver in the face of her sharp words or cold demeanor. Little by little, he chipped away at the walls she had built. He didn't try to fix her. He simply sat with her in the darkness, proving that she wasn't alone. And for the first time in years, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could be whole again. Chapter 4. The Breaking Point. But healing isn't a straight path. One moment she felt lighter, as if the weight of her past had finally begun to lift. The next, she was drowning again, pulled under by memories too heavy to escape. One night, she stood at the edge of the bridge, staring down at the water below. The temptation to let go was overwhelming. She was tired. So tired. But then Aaron's voice cut through the noise in her head. "Nadia, please." He didn't beg. He didn't try to convince her that everything would magically get better. He just stood there, offering her the choice to stay. And in that moment, she realized that maybe she didn't want to disappear after all. Chapter 5. The First Steps. It wasn't easy. The journey to healing never is. But Nadia took it one day at a time. She let herself feel, even when it hurt. She let Aaron in, even when every instinct told her to push him away. And slowly, the shattered pieces of her heart began to fit together again. Chapter 6. The Light at the End. Years later, Nadia stood in that same park. But this time, she wasn't alone. She wasn't broken anymore. She had scars, yes, but they were proof of her survival. She had learned that being broken didn't mean she was beyond repair. It simply meant she had more room to grow, to rebuild, to become something stronger than before. And as she looked at Aaron, his hand wrapped securely around hers, she knew one thing for certain. She had found her way home. Chapter 7. Facing the World Again. With each passing day, Nadia's confidence grew. She no longer flinched at the idea of trusting others. She enrolled in college, determined to turn her pain into something meaningful. Psychology became her calling. She wanted to help others who felt lost like she once had. Aaron stood by her side through it all, never pushing, always supporting. Their love wasn't built on grand gestures, but on quiet moments. The way he brewed her coffee just right, the way she traced patterns on his hand when she was nervous. It was love that healed, not love that burned. Chapter 8. The Return Home. One day, Nadia received a call that made her stomach twist. Her mother was in the hospital. It had been years since she'd seen her, years since she had heard that weak, apologetic voice. "Please, Nadia, I need you." A part of her wanted to hang up, to ignore the past, but another part, the part that had learned to forgive herself, knew that she had to go back. When she arrived, her mother was frail, her once fiery spirit dimmed by years of regrets. The woman who had failed her was now just a person, a flawed, hurting,